Okay, you are live, it says. So hopefully that means we are live. Thanks everyone for all your patience. We had a little technical difficulty, but hopefully you're all used to that. I'm certainly used to that in this new Zoom Plus era. Great, looks like we have over 11 people joining us, and I love to see on the side everybody commenting where they're from. Please feel free to do that. We'll shout you out. Welcome to our live social. This is our summer live social. We try to do these once per quarter to try to answer some questions and just sort of give some general details about VegFund and our grant making. I am Leah Gage. I'm the program manager at VegFund, and I'm going to be presenting today alongside Mikki. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Mikki.
Yeah, hi, I am Mikki Wilburn. I'm the program officer here at VegFund. Looking forward to chatting with you all like we do every few months.
Yeah, this is really fun for us because many of you may have emailed us and we've emailed you back, but it's good to get some FaceTime, even though we can't see your lovely faces. Real quick, because maybe some of you have never encountered VegFund before, we'll give a brief overview of what we do. So VegFund is primarily a grant-making organization. We've been around for well over 10 years now, I think 12 years almost. And the grants that we make really go toward vegan activism, plant-based education, and outreach. And we fund this in a number of ways. We have our community events program, which is focused on more traditional street outreach or event-based activism. So things like food samples, offering food samples at an event, hosting a film screening, which is a really popular way of getting people involved, paid-per-view outreach or video outreach, which is when you go out on the street and you encourage people to receive an incentive, maybe a $1 or a food sample or something in order to watch a short video about veganism or about factory farming or animal welfare. And then Veg Fest, vegan fairs, conferences, things like that. We also fund online campaigns. Right now that program is closed, but will reopen in October. And that's for really annual long-term online campaigns, things like mentored campaigns and challenges, things like maybe Veganuary or Challenge 22 or some things that we fund under that bucket. Then special projects is kind of our catch-all. It's the other bucket of funding that we offer for typically longer term projects, things like vegan restaurant weeks or in-person challenges, maybe capacity building for activists, long-term special events or campaigns, things like that. And actually, our special projects application is accepted on a quarterly basis. And the next due date for special projects is this Friday, July 1st. And we accept applications through the end of the day, through 11:59 p.m. Eastern on this coming Friday. If you don't make it, if you want to apply for a special project and you don't make it by that deadline, that's no problem. We will reopen the application again about a month later, and you will have another opportunity to apply by October 15th. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And if you have any questions about special projects in particular, if you're preparing an application, we can certainly discuss that today. But in addition to making grants, we do a lot of other things. We have a really active blog that I just couldn't recommend more. We recently got some great advice. We put out a call to you all and we asked you, what did you do during the pandemic and what are you doing now that the pandemic is quote unquote over or at least different and affecting us differently? And we're seeing a lot of in-person events come back. We're seeing a lot of things that really went dormant for a while come back. And we needed some advice for activists. You know, how are you re-engaging with volunteers? How are you engaging in marketing when maybe people who were following you on social media fell off or things like that? And so there's a really great blog that I recommend, Persevering in the Pandemic. that talks a lot about that and is sourced entirely from you, our VegFund grantees. We also, if you go to resources, you can find that at the top of our website. You see our website here, vegfund.org. There's just a huge wealth of resources. It's really a library, and that's searchable. You can find links to articles, to books, to all different kinds of things. And we have categories so that if you're looking for something in particular on maybe climate change or in the environment, or maybe something really more specific to event planning, it really runs the gamut. And so that's just like a huge resource of resources for you all. And then lastly, we do our best to keep an updated list of activist stories, which are really like case studies of our grant projects and some of the ones that we really want to shout out and we think we're done really well. Our communications team does a really nice job of laying it out and sort of showing you bullet by bullet points of, what did we achieve, what was worked on, but then also a kind of narrative version as well of who is the activist, what were they motivated by, who was their target audience. And we just recently published a great story about Eat, Drink, Disrupt, which was a summit that was hosted in South Carolina that was really successful, reached 750 people, and tried to reach the BIPOC community, which is often we find excluded from a lot of vegan outreach. So that's just an overview, but I do encourage you to check out the website, especially if you're looking for ideas for what to do. If you are a motivated vegan activist, but you haven't gotten started yet, there's a huge wealth of resources here to help you get started or to help give you ideas for new projects and things like that. So during the live social, please like and share this presentation. We are on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, and you can share it on your own page to kind of encourage other people to see it. It will be recorded, so you can share it afterwards. If you want to just share in general about VegFund and tag this event, you can use the VegFund Learn hashtag on any social media outlet, including Instagram, Twitter. We're on there as well. We're at VegFund on all of these platforms. And, that's been a really great way for us to connect with you all. So the more social engagement we get from you all, the more we can engage with others. And then lastly, I want to shout out this evaluation survey. So if you've ever applied for a grant from VegFund before, you know that we really care about understanding how you're evaluating your project. And we want to do the same thing. We want to put our money where our mouth is and encourage ourselves to understand, how did this go? So this is an event, this is outreach that we're doing here today on this live social. And my colleague Pat will copy and paste this link into the chat. And it's easy to find, vegfund.typeform.com/June 2022 AMA. It's a quick survey. Just give us a shout and let us know what you thought of today's event. And yeah, I'm going back and forth because that's my last slide. So I will stop sharing and come back to Mikki and I. So great. It looks like we have folks from Los Angeles, Atlanta, Palos Verdes, Tanzania, Malawi, India,
Ghana, Canada, Chicago, Chile.
So cool. Thanks for shouting out where you're from. And looks like, Pat just put the link to the survey in the chat there. So go ahead and click on it, actually, and then it'll be open in your browser. As soon as you close out of this AMA, it'll be right there, and then you can fill it out. So this is an AMA. Ask me anything. You can ask us anything, and we will do our best to answer. Hopefully it'll be about VegFund and grant making and vegan activism. But if you have questions about other things, like why my room is so messy or the sleeping dog behind me or anything like that, we're here to respond. Chappaqua, New York. Awesome. Love to see that. Well, let's see. I think I saw a few questions pop up here before. Plant peer communities. Awesome. We love plant peer communities. We do big events in West Bengal, India. That's great. Okay, well, I guess I don't see any questions coming through yet.
So there are a couple here that have just come through. Is there a fund limit for the special projects grant?
That's a great question. And, the answer that we always give is no, there's no limit. That's, and the reason we say that is because we really want you all to make your strongest case for the project that you are planning. But the limit is really, if you think more about the project that you're planning, what is it going to cost to achieve what you're planning? And what is it going to cost to achieve the most reasonable and actionable version of what you're planning? So, thinking about the marketing plan, thinking about how you're going to reach your target audience. Do you need some staff time, or do you need some things to kind of help bolster the project to make it happen? These are the best ways for you to think about your budget, and then to ask for a reasonable sum from VegFund that will fit your budget. I will say this year, and this is probably going to be the case for years to come, we're seeing an unprecedented number of applications coming through, especially for our special projects grant fund. So, we're probably not able to fund in the, multi-tens of thousands. I think right now our median grant amount is about $2,500 US. But again, we fund more than that, we fund less than that. So I would encourage you to make your case for the project that you're planning to undertake. I hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Leah. It looks like there might be a little bit about how to ask questions to us. So you can ask a question in the chat or comment section of whatever platform you're on, whether that's YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. We'll receive it either way. Yeah, and we have more questions regarding special projects. So Leah, how does funding work for special projects that may take a year to carry out? Typically, they receive funds prior to carrying out a larger project in order to pay for contractors and other costs.
Yeah, so special projects are usually paid out in either upfront or in multiple distributions, depending on the nature of the project, depending on how familiar we are with you as a grantee. For organizations that are either registered nonprofits in your local country or other kinds of registered organizations, we can be a little bit more flexible with how we pay out. For individuals, we really make grants as reimbursements typically. So that, knowing that, I will say, special projects is definitely the program you want to apply in for long-term projects, like a year-long project that it'll take to carry out. We fund lots of year-long projects, and the difference may be that we ask you to submit multiple periodic reports throughout the year to give us a sense of how things are going midway through the project, and then at the end of the project. Again, like I said, we may decide to distribute funding in multiple installments. But yeah, I think that that's exactly the type of project that we would fund through special projects, and so I would encourage you to apply if you think it meets our other eligible criteria.
Yeah, and speaking of criteria, Shala asks, what are the criteria to get funding for big activism and events?
Well, so Mikki, you manage a lot of the community events. What are some of the criteria that you see as being most important for a successful event?
Yeah, so some of the things that we look at are who's the target audience, because we don't want to be preaching to the choir. So do you have a plan for how to contact non-vegans or veg curious people and draw them in? Is your event accessible? So is it affordable? We really like to see, for community event grants, we like to see preferably free events, or if there is a ticket fee, no more than about the equivalent of $5 so that it is accessible. Is the venue also accessible to a large population of people? And then is your event specific to is it appropriate for your audience? So if it's targeting children, is it child friendly? If it's targeting very health conscientious people, is it kind of nutrition based? So is it appropriate for the target audience? And then also trying to really be conscientious of budget as well. So if there is an option for maybe a free venue or a lower cost venue, are you using those options as well, versus opting in for the really large, big, expensive arena versus something like a public library, if that would be appropriate. Mm-hmm. We also look to make sure that the event is planned out and thought out. Any kind of possible expense that might be incurred is included, and all of the details of the event are included in the application.
Yeah. So again, you want to think about what will it take to make a reasonable event happen. If you've never planned a really big event before and you want to start with that, we might not fund your event fully, or we might suggest that you maybe start a little bit smaller, simply because we know that those sorts of events take a lot of work. Maybe you're an individual and you're working completely by yourself and you want to plan a vegan film festival, or something that is going to take a lot of planning, a lot of organizing. Well, then we might encourage you to maybe find a team of volunteers, or partner with another organization or something before you undertake such a big event. But yeah, as Mikki said, really the main criteria we're looking for is that in your application you've made the case that you think this can be a successful project, and that it will really be geared toward reaching non-vegans and educating them in some capacity.
Yeah. Kelly asks, does the company have to be a nonprofit? So no, we support both organizations and individuals. If you are applying on behalf of an organization, it can be a nonprofit. It can also be a for-profit company, anything in between. So what we will do is we have an applicant profile that you'll have to fill out in order to apply for any kind of grant. And that step comes first. And in your applicant profile, we ask you for information about how you're applying. So if you're an individual, you'll say that you're not applying on behalf of an organization. If you are, then you'll say yes to that question, and it's just going to ask you a couple of questions. So what type of organization are you? And then we'll ask you, depending on how you answer that question, to upload a couple pieces of information, such as your IRS letter of determination, maybe your 990. Those are if you're located in the US, or otherwise just some sort of form that shows proof of your organization status. So if you are a for-profit company, or if you're registered outside of the US, some sort of government document or official document showing what your organization is.
Great. So I see this question about salaries. Can salaries be included in the grant budget breakdowns? Does VegFund cover such expenses? So first, I'll say, if salaries are part of your project budget, you should definitely include them. We want to see, even if you're not requesting your full budget, we want to see all of the budget that you've included for the project. And in the application, you'll see we have a table at the bottom that really kind of lists out different categories and ways to enter what the funds are for, and then how much you're allocating. Now, does VegFund cover salaries? Typically we don't cover salaries. We really try to focus our funds on programmatic expenses and not administrative expenses. That said, we know that people are necessary in order to carry out programs. And, not every program or event can rely on volunteers. So when we will cover salaries are really when those salaries are very specifically tied to the program that's being proposed. So if you're proposing a humane education project, let's say, and you need to pay teachers to go out and do the presentations or to train other teachers, those are salaries or expenses that we may cover. If you need to pay somebody to do graphic design work to create the content that you're planning to promote or use, that might be something that we would consider funding. So I hope that's helpful. If you have questions about that specifically, feel free to reach out and we'll do our best to answer. But what I can say is do your best to make your case in your application for why this salary is essential to, the actual carrying out of the program and that it's related to the content of the program. And that it's something that you've thought through. Something else I will say is we're not really in a position as an organization to fund someone's salary for the long term, and we understand that, an organization, hopefully when they hire somebody, if they want to hire somebody full time, that they'll keep them on past a year or whenever the project ends. And so, that's something, if you want to request funding for a salary, we would really encourage you in your application to show your plan for funding this person's salary beyond the project. VegFund will invest in a project at its outset, particularly if there are programmatic administrative costs, like funding a person's actual, funding their employment. But we're not really going to be able to do it in the long term. And so if we're going to fund it, we want to see that there's been some thought given to how this will be sustainable in the future. So I hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Leah. There's another question here from Nathan that might be good for you. We are planning to conduct vegan recipe challenges. How better can we do this event in order to be attractive?
We love vegan challenges at VegFund. I think vegan challenges are a really great way to engage people in something that is concrete, that has a very specific call to action. You're saying, we want you to go vegan for a week or 30 days, or we want you to commit to making a vegan recipe once per week or something. And so, being able to offer that call to action that's very specific, along with the other information that's going into your campaign, I think is already a really great way to engage, Nathan. We find so many times activists want to just share as much information as possible about the horrors of animal agriculture or, the climate crisis. And then, we leave people wondering, well, what can I do? And a very easy thing people can do is go vegan for a meal or go vegan for a week or a month. So, tying your campaign content to this action is a really great way to make it an attractive campaign. If you're specifically focusing on vegan recipes, trying to make sure that those recipes have been somewhat tested with people, have you had non-vegans, try these recipes? Are they good? Do they want to eat this food? Is this something that is going to be popular in your home community? One thing we've learned is that not all recipes work everywhere. Here in the US, we find there's a lot of Latino food that is eaten and made into vegan recipes, but that doesn't always translate in the UK. In the UK, they might be focusing more on making curries and things like that, and that's something that we've had to learn just anecdotally over. You have to really make sure that your audience is specifically attracted to what it is that you're offering. I would also say just focusing on understanding where your audience is coming from. Why are they interested in your vegan challenge? Is it because they want something more healthy? Are they trying to change their diet? Are they trying to lose weight? Or are they really focused on, helping animals? Is that the audience that you're reaching? Then maybe you would tailor your content that way. Obviously, climate is a huge issue, and it's something that's really weighs on people, and it's difficult information to impart at times. But if you want to talk about that, then finding ways to really tie your recipes that you're offering or the challenge at the time that you're offering to that content. So taking time to understand the target audience that you're reaching and what it is that's motivating them to take part in your challenge. I hope that answers it. And if there are others on here who have hosted successful vegan challenges, please feel free to chime in and give Nathan your opinions.
Okay, so there are several comments here from Petra.
Okay.
So Petra represents two entities, a nonprofit and a nutrition science foundation, and a food pickup and delivery service that delivers in 48 states. They're a small team. Their goal is to prevent or reverse chronic disease based on the major providers like Dr. Esselstyn, Ornish, and Barnard. They want to reach people who are at risk for chronic diseases. And what they would like to do is to find people for a study for 30 to 60 days to eat only vegan, low fat, no sugar, no added oils to show what the lifestyle can do. And then they want to publish the results. Can they ask for funding for that effort?
That's a great question. We have funded research projects in the past, and we typically fund 1 or 2 research studies per year. I think that the things that make us interested in funding a research study like this are that knowing that, there's a plan in place, which it really sounds like there is. And we're lucky to have on our review committee some medical professionals and others who have conducted studies before and who can give rigorous reviews of these sorts of proposals. But then too, that there's some plan in place for how this research will be published and disseminated to the audience that you hope it will reach. So in this case, it sounds like maybe you would be wanting to reach medical professionals, healthcare professionals, nutrition professionals, trying to show the benefits, the actual health benefits of a vegan lifestyle. I know it sounds like, let's see. So you said that we're a small goal or a small team, and our goal is to prevent chronic disease with a whole plant-based diet. So you mentioned Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Barnard and Ornish. And so if you're able to partner with them at all, I know that PCRM is always doing studies like this, because we recognize that publishing this work and getting this kind of work out to the practitioners that you want to reach can be difficult. And so building those partnerships and even just getting those sorts of endorsements is really key. So I would encourage you to include that information if you have it in your application, and to really focus on showing what it is the proposal, how the proposal or how the study rather would be implemented, your recruitment strategy, how you would conduct the research, the cost of conducting the research. I'm assuming you would need to be doing blood tests and cholesterol tests and other things. And then what are your plans, or do you already have connections to particular journals or peer-reviewed outlets that you can access to get your studies published?
Thanks, Leah. Petra also asked a follow-up question. Can they use the grant money to go to a conference, which is attended by over 700 plant-based doctors who could promote their food to patients?
We really don't fund activists to attend conferences. We, in the events that we do fund folks to attend a conference, it would be to have like an educational component to your attendance. So if you're presenting or if you are tabling, we may be able to cover part of the vendor fee We may be able to cover, some of the content that you're producing, but we don't fund conference attendance fees. Typically, we don't fund travel or board and room and board, things like that.
Thanks. Efren asks, if we get a grant, but we end up having to postpone for a couple months due to unforeseen circumstances, would we lose that grant? So we are able to pause grants and postpone them and extend them because, especially given what happened in the last few years, we understand things happen. And so, yes, we are able to put grants on hold for you. It's just important that you reach out to us and let us know and communicate with us, because if you don't, we do eventually cancel unused grants. But as long as you're keeping up that communication and keeping us in the loop, then we are able to postpone it, and you can use the grant in a few months when the project is able to get going. Kushal also asked, does VegFund provide funds in India? And if yes, how? So we do provide funds. We are a global organization. We provide grants to all countries. If you are a US-based grantee, we use a service called bill.com, where we are able to put the funds directly into your bank account through this third-party vendor that is bill.com. And if you're located outside of the US, then we use PayPal predominantly. There are a few countries where PayPal doesn't work, and so then we use another type called Amex FX. But yes, we do provide funds to India, and I do believe PayPal does work there.
Yeah, and we know that sometimes sending funds from foreign organizations to India can be difficult, and we've worked with India-based organizations to provide a letter or whatever it is that's needed. So we could work with you if your grant was approved, Kushal, to make sure that the funds would be transferred to you.
All right, we've been asked, do we fund investigations?
So we don't typically fund investigations themselves. What we will fund is if you're producing a documentary or a video, we will fund the actual promotion of that. We will fund screening costs related to the documentary if a documentary is produced. We will fund, in some cases, the social media ads to promote the content or to promote the event if you're hosting an event. But we don't fund investigations themselves directly.
There's another question. In places like the US, you can get local news to do free stories on public interest campaigns. In Ghana, you have to pay the TV, radio station, or small outlet. Then can the cost of publicity be included?
So we have funded some groups to pay or to work directly with TV or radio stations to publicize your stories. So yeah, I would include that in your marketing budget. Whenever possible, we love to see quotes from the actual entity that you plan to contract with. So if you want to work with a TV station, if you can get like a quote from them, like this is how much it will cost to run this ad or to promote this story for however long, that's really helpful for us when we're making our decisions. But yes, I think that would be considered part of marketing and publicity.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also understand that different media channels work better in different countries. And so maybe in some countries, it's better to do something on the radio versus TV. And so we're open to, to finding out what works best in your area. Can an organization submit 2 projects, one by the 2 different grant categories? Yeah, so we don't have a limit to the number of applications that can be submitted at a time. So like Leah mentioned at the beginning, the different grant categories do work a little differently. For special projects, they are we accept them on a quarterly basis. So there are application deadlines for those every 3 months, whereas community event grants are accepted on a rolling basis. So you can go in and submit an application for that at any time. And that being said, we are a very small team with not very many people. So we do need a little bit of lead time to process applications. With community event grants, we do ask that you try to provide at least 4 weeks in advance to give us time to process your application. So, but yeah, you can absolutely submit a special projects grant and a community events grant, or even 2 of the same one, 2 community event grants or 2 special project grants at the same time. That's fine.
Yeah, I would just add to also, if you're applying for multiple projects and you yourself are representing a small organization or a small, informal group of volunteers, to also make your case for why you think both projects are doable, in the time frame that you've outlaid. And so, like Mikki mentioned, we're a small team. You're looking at the programs team right here. And so, we know that we can't do everything, and we have to limit sometimes the projects that we do. And, small organizations need to do that as well. And so if you want to propose 2 different projects, 2 different kinds of outreach projects, that's fantastic. But just make sure that, since we're seeing the multiple applications that you're submitting, that you're able to speak to why you think you're able to conduct both projects. Or if you're not, then you should really prioritize the one that you think you can, that is most possible for you. Cool. Thank you, Blaze. Great. I love to see connections being made between grantees through the chat. So I'm really happy when that can happen. And I will say, you all are probably the best resources for one another when it comes to doing this work. VegFund, we really do our best. Our goal is to be that resource, be it through finance or through, the other resources we've mentioned. But we can't always provide everything that you all need. And we certainly can't always provide all of the funding that you need. And so reaching out to other grantees, reaching out to other activists and finding out, where did you get funding to do this? Because there are other organizations providing funding. VegFund is not the only one. And we actually have a resource on our website that we have. It's one of our most popular resources that lists a lot of different grant making organizations. And so we, if and when we can't make a full grant or we can't make a grant at all for a particular project, we always link to that resource so that you all can find other sources of funding as well. Let's see. This is an interesting question. In some African countries, veganism is seen as anti-God or devilish. People feel like veganism isn't Black. Would you fund production costs to normalize vegan so it doesn't seem fringe? Yeah, that's something we've actually been speaking with other activists on the African continent about. We know that veganism as a concept is seen as maybe elitist, or it's just not seen in the same way, or it's just not a very popular concept. And we also know that in many food insecure communities, like in sub-Saharan Africa, it's difficult to talk about veganism when you're just worried about feeding yourself and your family. So absolutely, I would say, doing projects that help to normalize veganism would be welcome. We've also, funded projects in Africa that are focused on, teaching about animal sentience, about animal welfare, kind of trying to start that conversation before broaching the subject and going straight to veganism, because we know that it's just a different conversation. And again, we're always saying, make sure you understand your target audience. And if that your target audience isn't going to be receptive to veganism, then we don't want you to be spouting that information. It's more important to us that the case is being made that will be useful, that will be heard, and that will actually make a difference in your community.
Petra asks, if you get a small grant once, can you still apply for a larger grant 3 months later? Will it decrease the likelihood that it will be granted? You can absolutely. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Leah.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so you can continue to apply for more grants. If you get a grant once and we're not able to fund the full project, you are always welcome to apply for more grants or grants for other projects. That does not prevent you from applying in the future. What is important is to submit all of your reporting information in a timely manner and to stay on schedule, because we do look at that and take that into consideration for future grants. And so yeah, if you're providing all of the information that you say that you'll provide and that we ask you to provide, then yeah, you'll continue to be eligible for future grants.
Yeah, it wouldn't decrease the likelihood that you would receive funding necessarily, unless it's clear that you haven't spent the funds that were already granted, or we haven't received, like Mikki said, if we haven't received the report and that shows how the funds were received, or how the funds were spent, rather than then we might not make the grant in the future. And also, we always do our best to fully fund projects, but if we're not able to fully fund a project, and we state that in the special projects, if you apply through a special project and we say, unfortunately, we're not able to fully fund this, but we're able to fund this amount, then probably 3 months later, we wouldn't be able to give additional funding toward the very same project. But I would reach out, and if you have questions about that, just let us know. We do our best to answer questions, and we want to make sure everybody gets something toward your project. We want you all to be successful, and we're trying to distribute our funds as effectively as possible.
Yeah. Miguel asks if he does a series of events like food samplings and talks, do I need to create a single request for each day or event? So if it's a series and it's building on each other, that sounds like it would be a good community events application. So you can submit one application for the whole series and be sure to include information for the whole schedule and information for all of the events. And then that would, then you can request funding for the whole series rather than by the event.
Good to hear from you, Miguel. Miguel is a former awardee of VegFund at our 10-year anniversary. And so great to see you still being extremely active in Mexico. Let's see. Here we go. Are there projects that span over the course of 5 months? Yes. So as we've said, a year-long project, a 5-month-long project, definitely use the special projects application. So if the project is going to last more than 1 year, we would ask that you kind of describe that in your application, and we may sort of fund the first year's portion of that project. But typically, if the project is going to last 1 year or less, then it should be no problem for us to consider fully funding it, and the special projects application would be the correct program through which to apply. And just to answer this, yes, we do provide funding to East African countries, including Tanzania. And I believe we have funded Tanzania recently. This is great. So I want to just shout this out real quick and show this. Oh, okay. I can't show them both at the same time. But here's the resource that I had mentioned. My colleague Patrick pasted this in here. Thank you, Patrick. So if you do need other sources of funding, we keep a long list of other vegan advocacy grant makers. There's a lot of them that provide funding. A Well-Fed World, Pro-Veg International, the Culture and Animals Foundation. Can't think of all of them, but they're listed here, and so I would encourage you to check that out. And, if you are in a position to help out, VegFund is donor funded. We do the work that we're able to do because of generous donations from individuals and organizations that want to support our work. They know that we are good at looking at projects and vetting them, and they believe in the work that we're doing to support the work that you're doing. And so if you're able, if you've been a grantee of VegFund and you're able to shout out VegFund through your work or encourage folks to donate to us, that helps us immensely. And it allows us to fund even more, which is really what we want to do. We want to be able to grow. We want to be able to fund your growth projects, fund your projects as they grow. And so, providing funding to VegFund is a great way to do that. And let's see. Great. Yeah. Thank you, Patrick, for putting the donate link in there. And the link to the fundraising resource is it's up there in the chat, Petra. If you can scroll up, you'll find it. It's been linked. Okay, we have a couple more questions popping up here. We've got about 7 minutes. We don't want to take too much of your time, but we want to be here and answer all the questions you have. If we are grant recipients of VegFund from the past or received grants from other sources, does that help or hurt our cause? I would definitely say it helps. We want to fund repeat organizations because we know the work that you're doing. We just, like I said, if it's if it's sort of more administrative in nature, really funding kind of the core work that the organization's doing, the core operations rather, that's something we can't fund year on year. But definitely, if you're conducting new programs, if you're doing an event again or doing something, we encourage you to come back and request funding. And we love to see that you're getting funding from other sources. That tells us that you've taken the time and effort to look for other funding, to think about the sustainability of your project, that other groups are interested in investing in your project. So definitely something that would help your cause.
There's a question, are people still doing pay-per-view? Yes, so we do still have activists, individual activists and organizations who still conduct pay-per-view events. It did slow down quite a bit during COVID because of the health and safety issues of being in such close personal contact. But now that things are opening back up, we are seeing that pay-per-view events are coming back to life, which is super exciting. And we have a few organizations that conduct quite a few of these pay-per-view events, and they're really getting rolling again.
Yeah, and VegFest too, right? It's and lots of these in-person events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. Food sampling, VegFest, they are all coming back to life.
Yeah, it's great to see. We saw a lot of those events go virtual. And while that was so cool, it was so cool to watch you all figure out how to do things during COVID. And the activism didn't stop. It just changed. But now that folks are able to gather together, in person a little bit more safely, it's really nice to be able to see that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just going to shout this out because it allows us to do more of the great work we've been talking about. So that's our donate page, vegfund.org/donate. Feel free to share it with folks who might be interested in donating, even just a small amount. It really helps us, and it helps us make the case to other donors that the work we're doing is important. And I think that looks like all of the questions we have. So thank you all so much for being here. We are going to try and do this. Like I said, we try to do this every quarter. I'm going to be out of the office for a short period of time. I'm going to be on maternity leave. And so that's going to start sometime at the end of August. And so I won't be available for at least a couple of months, but I will be back. and you will be in the extremely capable hands of Mikki and our program assistant Joy and our director Leslie and Patrick and all of the folks at VegFund. We're a small and very active team, and we all try to be involved. So we thank you for your patience during that time and for understanding, that we won't necessarily be able to respond as quickly as possible, but the applications will still be accepted, and everything should be moving forward. So we don't want you all to feel abandoned. And yeah, anything else that, let's put the, let's put this in there it is. Thank you, Patrick. You read my mind. Please take a moment to leave your thoughts on the live social at the link that was just pasted, vegfund.typeform.com. It shouldn't take too long to complete. And it's a very brief survey, but it really helps us understand what else we can bring you and how to better serve you. Great. Well, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Hope that everybody is able to get your applications in for the special projects deadline this Friday. If you have questions, let us know, but also, hopefully we were able to answer most of your questions today. And have a great rest of your week. Thanks for all the great work you do. And thanks, Mikki.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. As always, it's so exciting to chat with y'all live.
Definitely. Oh, how do we get the recording? So the recording will be posted on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'll also link to it on our website. It should be just at the same link. It'll once it's processed, it'll be right here where you found it. So great. We're going to sign off. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.